We do have breaking news this morning. Sources telling CNN that the January 6th committee will likely reach out to the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas here in the coming weeks. This happens after text messages between Ginni Thomas and then White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows showed her urging President Trump's team to continue the big lie, to keep pressing on, trying to say that they'd won the election. Joining us now is CNN national security reporter Zachary Cohen and CNN correspondent and co-anchor of CNN's Early Start, Laura Jarrett. Okay, Zach, first, just walk us through this. What is the committee thinking of doing here?
Well, Brianna, sources are telling me and my colleague Jamie Gingell that the committee is likely to reach out to the wife of sitting Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas within the next couple of weeks and maybe sooner. Now, it's really important because our sources are telling us that most of the members of the committee, including the chairman and the vice chairman, Representative Ginni Thomas and Congresswoman Liz Cheney, are both on board with this. Now, it remains to be seen how exactly they plan to do that reach out, if they do it quietly or if they do it via subpoena. The committee has previously not ruled out a subpoena for anybody in this investigation. So it's another step forward since we've seen those text messages, those 29 text messages from Ginni Thomas to Mark Meadows, President Donald Trump's former chief of staff. Now, they're pretty explosive, and we've covered those extensively, but the committee has some questions.
Yeah, and I think there's a big question of, if you're Mark Meadows or you're another White House aide, are you looking at texts from Clarence Thomas's wife and thinking there's an indication of support from the Supreme Court? That is a big question. She mentions her best friend in one of the texts. What do we need to know about this one?
Well, there's no clear evidence that she is directly referring to her husband in that text message, but she and her husband have both referred to each other as their best friend publicly before. Now, I think we have a few clips where they've done that in the past.
I love to spend time with my wife, who's totally my best friend in the whole world. My wife is totally my best friend.
Now, again, CNN has not been able to confirm that Ginni Thomas is referring to her husband in that text message, but it raises more questions about potential overlap between her conservative activism and the Supreme Court, a sitting Supreme Court justice's role on the court, especially in an investigation that could bring cases to the Supreme Court in the future.
Yeah, Laura, looking at these texts, why are these so alarming to the committee?
Well, you would think it has to be, given her position, as Zach just laid out, as the wife of a sitting Supreme Court justice, a justice who is ruling on election cases related to January 6th, and in the days after the election related to cases having to do with just election procedures in general, cases I should mention he did not recuse from, despite the fact that his wife is corresponding with the then chief of staff. And just it shows sort of the deep level of conspiracy theories that she has bought into. She is way down the looking glass on some of these. And whether or not it raises any criminal exposure for her, I think remains to be seen, just because we don't have the full story here. We've seen 29 text messages out of thousands of pages that Mark Meadows has released, but we know that he has held back a fair amount as well. We don't know everybody else that she was texting. There's reporting out there suggesting that she was texting members of Congress. And so the committee is going to have a lot of questions about what else was she saying? What were people saying back to her? And there's also this curious gap in time. After November 24th, weeks after the election, things then go dark until about January 10th, when she then starts texting Meadows, and back and forth the exchanges happen again. So the committee is going to have some questions about what happened during those intervening weeks as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, they're going to want to know who her best friend is, right? And we should also point out, Laura, I think this is significant, because if you're considering, is there a line of demarcation between Ginni Thomas and Clarence Thomas, there is a data point that makes you question that, which is Clarence Thomas, in a key decision, was the lone holdout, right?
He was the lone holdout when it came to those tranches of documents that were supposed to go to the National Archives, and they eventually did go to the National Archives, despite the fact that Thomas objected to it. Now, again, we don't know whether Ginni Thomas had any documents at issue in those, but the fact that he's ruling on those cases and not recused just shows the limits of the recusal issue here. Remember that it's essentially up to the justices. A lot of people have sort of balked at that and been surprised that there isn't a sort of more strong way to hold the justices accountable, but the Supreme Court essentially operates on an honor system. There's a federal law requiring recusal when your impartiality would be questioned. You would think this might be one of those instances, but who is supposed to enforce that when the Supreme Court is essentially the highest court that would be able to rule on an issue?
We'll keep watching this. Zach and Laura, thanks to you both.